Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about sort of an update, letting you know what's coming up on the horizon in the next few days, what's coming up next week. But also, you know what? Real quick, let me show you this. I'm just excited about something that I just got today. Check this out.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from
I've got a bunch of videos coming up this week. I've got about maybe 4 videos, so of course I'm going to have to talk through those. I'm going to be sitting in my chair. I'm going to be doing some art and design, kind of creating some of my world building stuff. There's going to be tons and tons of hours in editing, so this chair is something that I've had my eye on for a long time, and it's just awesome that I've got such a comfortable thing that I can kind of sit down on and get some work done. So as far as what's coming up, I've got a couple of reviews that might be in the pipeline. I've corresponded with some people through email and whatnot, and there's a few emails that have been kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit, which is a good problem to have to a certain extent. I want to stay a little more organized, of course, but I am getting quite an influx of various people that are asking me to do some reviews of their content and whatnot. So if I can manage some efficiency and communication with these individuals in the next day or two, I'm going to have a review up this week by Sunday on Jarlaxle's Guide to Traps. I'm also going to have a review on There's an Adventure by a guy that wants me to take a look at the first in his series of adventures coming up, and it looks promising. It's something I think I might want to talk through in my review system a little bit, because I like that he's gearing it towards upwards of 7 players, which is something that is very near and dear to my heart because I run 9 to 10 players at all times. Also, there is a very big review coming up by Dragonix. Dragonix created the Monster Manual Expanded. I did a review of this maybe a couple of months back or so, and he reached out to me and asked if he can send me a review copy of the Monster Manual 2. So hopefully I can get that and obtain that review copy and do that review for all of you and for Dragonix as well. So this is something that's a big release on DM's Guild right now. It's on the hot list, and it's, it's full of a lot of spice, and there's a lot of good bits that I'd like to talk through. But what I want to talk through very quickly today, because coming up next week is the release of the official WotC book called Eberron, Rising from the Last War. I want to talk through a little bit of Eberron today and give you sort of the first in my introduction video. And I'm going to talk through just a brief sort of intro into Eberron and talk you through a little bit of why I'm so excited about Eberron and the reviews that I'm going to be doing coming up. By Sunday, I hope to put up a video of sort of a scroll through, not a review per se, but just a talk through of the original Eberron. I have it in PDF format. The reason why Eberron is so enticing to me is not only is it preparation for the upcoming official release, which is the first time that we're going to see the release of an official new D&D class called the Artificer. So Eberron is something that has always appealed to me for many, many reasons. First off, I've never dabbled into it enough. I've never run it as a dungeon master. I have played in it, and it's something that is, to me, it's sort of as official as it gets. It's on par with the Greyhawk and the Forgotten Realms and things of that nature. And I think a big part of that is that Eberron created sort of at that time a shift away from just purely fantasy, and it really pushed into sort of that pulp, a little more very high heroics, sort of the prevalence of very low-level magic, but everywhere. So street lamps are always lit through magical means. There's flying ships in it. So it created this fascinating world that a lot of people latched onto. The other thing that is always exciting about Eberron to me, and it has been since it came out, I believe it's been 15 to 20 years now, 17 years ago, I think, Wizards of the Coast put out a sort of a contest, if you will, right? A cry for submissions of various worlds and new settings. And there was something like 10,000 people that submitted their efforts and their content. The creator of Eberron was Keith Baker, and he won the contest. He submitted this, just a wealth of content to Wizards of the Coast, and they selected his campaign setting. And they put the official treatment and their resources behind it and released an actual book that is now this world, this setting. Eberron has been out for 15 plus years. And as I said, some people put it on par with the Forgotten Realms and whatnot. I mean, it's an official setting that perhaps millions of people have actually played in. And it's kind of been at a little bit of a slow point when it comes into, I think it was re-released for 4th edition, but with 5th edition, I think we've all been sort of itching for something new, right? There's a lot of content in Forgotten Realms, but that's always been there. And I love it, and Forgotten Realms has always been fascinating to me, and it was the sort of foundation in a lot of my fantasy reading with R.A. Salvatore's Crystal Shard trilogy and whatnot, and Dritz, and, up there in Icewind Dale and all this other stuff. And I've played and I've run in Forgotten Realms, but I think, especially in 5th edition, people are kind of looking for something new. They're waiting for, when is Planescape going to come back, or when is Darksun going to come back, or, Scarred Lands, or Kingdoms of Kalamar, or a 5th edition version of Greyhawk and whatnot, right? And of course, DMs are always free to kind of just dabble and create their own worlds as I do. But I think something with Eberron, this new release coming up next week, is just a really highly anticipated piece of content. It's a world and a setting that is given sort of another stretch and another run of official content that we can digest as dungeon masters and as players, and really start getting the hype train rolling with Eberron once again. So what I'm going to do is, for those that are kind of new to Eberron, as a little bit of sort of an introduction and a primer before we get to my review of the actual official book that's releasing next week, I want to put up by Sunday, as I said, I'd like to put up a video on sort of the 3rd edition version of Eberron and kind of talk you through what it is and show you that there's just so much there, again, on par with Forgotten Realms. And I want to just show you kind of why, and maybe talk through a little bit about the things that have sort of just permeated the Dungeon Master space and the D&D space for 15 years, because Eberron is sort of responsible for those Warforged, and you've got the Dragon Mark houses, and you have that kind of high fantasy, and there hasn't almost, in a certain sense, there hasn't been anything else that has done it to the level of Eberron. And I think with that new release, combined with sort of the excitement I have for it, in that I've never really dabbled into it as much as I should have, and it's always been sort of on the back burner for me and something I wanted to invest more time into. And now, conveniently, with this new official book coming out, I want to kind of not just get the new book and be able to perhaps run some new content for my players and my campaign group in the future, but it's forcing me to kind of go backwards a little bit and take a look at what existed in the earliest and the first editions of Eberron during like 3rd edition, when that contest came out. And there's also just a fascination from a creative standpoint, as someone that's in the process of making their own world and is fascinated with the kind of the nuts and bolts of just the underground level of creators, those that are not actually working at any sort of game company, like the people that are just home grinding with ideas. Eberron is like the epitome of showing you that if you put the effort and attention into a world, it can blow up, at an official level, as it is coming up here. So I want to talk through some Eberron stuff coming up later this week with those other reviews that I mentioned. And then that'll lead us well into next week, where I've got some other, of course, custom content and some design things and world building I want to talk through. I might kind of start showing you a few little tips and little interesting points about the current world and talk through that a little bit that I'm working on and the world that I'm creating. That's what's coming up on the channel. Stay tuned. There's more videos coming up this week. Thank you everyone so much for all of your support and continuing to put forth your time, your energy, and your efforts into everything that I ramble about. That's all I have for you folks today. Thanks for watching, and take care.